Alright you guys, today's video is how to change the distributor on a freaking Ford in the parking lot of a Dollar General. What happened is my distributor chewed up. The reluctor is right here. This part right here is what passes the pickup unit and tells the engine which cylinder is ready to fire. This is the actual component that does the timing. Let me this piece right here sets down on there. The pickup unit sits right here. Here's that old goober. This sits underneath that reluctor. But this component right here sits over here. And as these wheels pass it, that's a Hall effect sensor. It picks up the magnetic field interruptions that the reluctor creates. And it tells the ignition control module to break ground on the coil, which is this side, tells that module to turn off the ground right here on this wire, so that the energy that's stored up in this coil has to go through the coil wire, come to the distributor in the middle, and then the rotor button disperses it to the correct spark plug wire. Well, what happened, I've been having vacuum advance problems, and this wire got sucked under the reluctor. So what we're doing here, and it shorted out and burnt the wire all the way back to here. So I'd already ordered a distributor for this truck because this one had a little bit of flop in it. You can't really see it on video much, but you can see it a little bit. This distributor has some flop in it. So I'd already ordered a new distributor. I'm having them deliver it up here. My local Napa is awesome. Shout out to Napa in Thomaston because they're awesome. And they're bringing me a new distributor up here to Dollar General. So that's awesome. Most companies won't deliver unless you're commercial. So what I've done here, since I determined that I don't want to fix that thing and try to hack it back together and get back going, what I did is I put the rotor button back on the distributor right where the engine sits. I ain't moved it to top center or nothing. The engine was running decent where it was at. So I put the rotor button back on top. And where that rotor button points, I put a black mark, so that I know where the distributor needs to be pointed when I put the truck back together. The next step in changing this distributor is to take you a 1/2 inch wrench, and there's a lock plate. Let me move this cap so you can see. There's a lock plate that sits right there. Let me put it back in there so you can see what I'm talking about. This here's the lock plate. It's got a 1/2 inch bolt in it, a single 1/2 inch bolt. Now this is on a FE 390, 360, 352, 360, 390, 427, 428. I think there's a couple more sizes in there. They all run the same distributor in the same location, right here in the front of the intake manifold, and that's what holds it down. You take you a 1/2 inch wrench and remove that bolt. Be sure not to move your distributor until you've got things marked. See, I've got that marked up there to show where the rotor button needs to be pointed in relation to the distributor. Now what I'm going to do is, see this intake manifold bolt right here? I'm going to take and go to the point of it down here, on that point, and see where that goes in reference to the distributor. Alright? And I'm going to lay my pen across that bolt so I know it's a straight line, just like so, and put a mark on the side of the distributor here. Up. Do it just like plywood. Do a V, so that your starting point is your point, because the marker made all kind of marks in between. But see, now I know where the distributor needs to be in reference to where the engine is at. That way I know where everything's at. See that beard there is basically, if I can get the camera past this annoying hose, that beard on top of on the side of the distributor is basically pointed at that bolt hole. Pretty easy reminder there. My goofy phone decided it wouldn't record after I hit record. Alright, well what I've done is I pulled this distributor up and out of the motor. But first, I went right here. Can you see that mark? That mark is in reference to that intake manifold bolt. That mark points at that bolt. And this beard right here points straight down at the distributor lock bolt hole. That's a 1/2 inch bolt on a plate, on a hold down plate. That's what that is. It just goes right here. You can get it with a regular 1/2 inch wrench on these FE 390s. That's a 352, 360, 390. I think 408 or something like that. 427 Cobra Jet, 427, 428, 428 Cobra Jet. That's where the distributor's at. I think the Cobra Jets may have 2 bolts holding them down. I'm not exactly sure. I don't remember. It's been a long time since I've messed with a Cobra Jet. But the distributor's in the same place, same block. They're all FEs. An FE is a FE. Not the same animal, but same setup. Now when you pull that distributor out, you need to be very, very, very careful. Because on that bottom of that distributor, there's a drive shaft. This drive shaft right here. That garbage AB weld is not factory equipment. What came on this distributor, or on this oil pump drive shaft from the factory, was a washer that's supposed to maintain it in place. Well, as with what metal on metal does, it loses that washer. It grinds it down until it falls off and you get it out of the motor on the next oil change. I've JB welded mine to keep it in place. But when you pull that distributor out, you need to be very, very careful, because as you pull it up, if you don't keep that distributor perfectly straight and that oil pump drive shaft does not stay in the engine, you can lose that oil pump drive shaft at an angle down in there. And then you got to use a pickup tool, not a magnetic pickup tool, because that don't work. It won't get a good enough grip on it. But you got to use a pickup tool to reach down in there, one of the grabber tools, and grab the end of that shaft and finagle it out of there, which is a pain in the butt. It's much easier said than done. And you got to get it to get back in the oil pump, because it can go at an angle and not be in the oil pump and cause all kinds of hell. So be careful when you pull that distributor out. Keep it perfectly straight so that if this rod does drop out, it'll have a better chance of falling back into the oil pump rather than getting at an angle. I learned that the hard way. I fished that thing out of there 5 or 6 times before I put that JB weld on it to keep it in place. But I haven't moved the motor to top center or anything. I left it right where it was at. I marked the distributor. I marked the top of the distributor right here to say where the rotor button's supposed to be. Marked the side of the distributor with a mark pointing at the intake manifold bolt. That way I know where the distributor goes. I know where the rotor button goes in relation to the distributor for the way the engine was running before it shut down. Now, I got to give a shout out to my local Napa Auto Parts. They're delivering me a new distributor up here to Dollar General. You know, most auto parts companies will not deliver unless you're a commercial account holder. So I definitely got to give a shout out to Ham's Auto Parts, Napa Auto Parts in Thomaston, Georgia. They're awesome. And I'll be back with you when they get here. I just figured that I'd take this opportunity while I got it apart, just since there's not a lot of information online about these Ford distributors. I just want to show y'all how this distributor works. Now on this distributor, inside, you've got a set of weights here and springs. This is your mechanical advance. As your engine speeds up, these swing out. which forces that mechanism to open up. It's hard to do with one hand while holding the camera with the other and a truck going by loud as he can possibly do. But as these weights spring out, they wedge this mechanism open, which causes the distributor to advance. This is your mechanical advance. See, I popped it forward, now it'll pop back. This is your mechanical advance mechanism right here inside of a Ford distributor. It's a spring here and a spring here. You can see somebody's cobbled a spring that don't go in there before. That actually looks like, actually not sure what that spring came out of, but it's not a distributor spring. That's the correct spring for this distributor in this truck. Actually, that may be a distributor spring. That may have been out of the Thunderbird that the transmission came out of. But these are this is your mechanical advance mechanism. Now on top of that sits this plate. Let's see if I can get it where you can see. And of course another loud truck's gonna come by right now. Alright, I'm just gonna let it lay on its side since it's lazy. I guess it's earned its keep. It's been in there 40 years. I guess it's earned its right to be lazy. Now this plate sits down in there. And you got two bolt holes in this plate. If I can get it spun around. Let's see, that's the lineup beard. Trying to get it spun around to where it lines up with its bolt holes, without completely keeping y'all from being able to see what I'm doing. I'm doing this with my phone in the parking lot where it decided to eat itself up at. Alright, got one bolt hole here, which of course this bone with it, there we go. One bolt hole here, and then there's another bolt hole at the back end of this whole mechanism. If I can get it spun around. Right there. That's under the pickup unit. Now when this is installed, these wires, let me stand this thing up at something so it'll hold itself. Alright, when this unit's installed in the truck, this side faces forward. These wires, see these two tabs on these wires? This tab and that tab? That all depends on which distributor you've got, which way it rotates, which one of those gets a bolt. On this particular distributor, it's counterclockwise, so the bolt goes there. That's what gives you ground. That's part of your grounding system for your distributor. And then these wires are your feedback, or your feed wires from this Hall effect sensor, your pickup unit. But this unit goes in here, then this slides in, then you put a screw here and a screw back here in that hole, and then the reluctor goes on, which is this piece. Make sure you have the fins pointing up, and there's an alignment pin that goes in there, see? Make sure you put the alignment pin back where it was from the get-go. If it's on the wrong side, things will be wrong. Now if you'll see, I've got a green dot on mine just to show where it was. It's kind of off kilter, but it's there though, and I can see it. Make sure that alignment pin is in there when you put it on, if you're actually putting it together to work. Now that alignment pin can slide past where it's supposed to go. As you can see, the slot continues on down in there. So that pin can go down and lose the reluctor. Just make sure that don't happen. See, there's where the reluctor goes, is on top of that plate. Then the alignment pin goes in, since it decided it wanted to keep falling out before. I'm just going to install it after the fact. it goes down in right there. I'm gonna take a flathead screwdriver and just help it get down in there. This is not the best way to treat your distributor if you plan to keep it, but I would normally use a piece of brass to get this down in here. But since I'm not keeping this distributor, it just needs to go back together to be a core. It's about to get all new guts anyway, because it's going to be remanufactured. And then the vacuum advance mounts right here. Let me go get it. This is the vacuum advance. I just set the camera down to get the vacuum hose off of it. I only use the best quality hoses, so they grab good. That's your vacuum advance module. Now that module, of course, I've managed to get the phone upside down here. And would you believe Moto didn't rotate? Yes. Motos have gone to crap. Vacuum advance module goes right there. The arm hangs on this pin on the side of the pickup unit to control the location of it. Now I've been having problems with this vacuum advance module hanging in full advance, which makes it, any of you people that drive old Fords with finicky timing, you know what happens if the timing gets too far advanced. You can't start the engine. It's on the starter because it's trying to ignite long before the cylinder hits top dead center, which is good if you're running at 35, 45, 5500 RPMs, because it gives this combustion process time to get up to full pressure before the cylinder starts down. Well, my storage went full while I was trying to record, but what I was saying is, if it's at full advance when you're trying to start the engine, it won't start. So I put that O-ring on there just to hold the distributor, or just to hold the thing together and still be easy to pop off so I could release the distributor to start the engine. The vacuum advance was hanging open. I'd have to push over. Let's set this thing down so I can show you. I was having to take this rod loose and push it over to release it inside the vacuum advance where it was hanging. And I imagine that's what caused my wires to get flopped over into the reluctor and eventually caused them to get ate up. But either way, you can't start the engine with it at full advance, so that's what I was doing. There's supposed to be a snap ring right there. Once you get that plate on, get the screw back here, the other screw up here, drop the reluctor down on it. Make sure the roll pin's in the reluctor, holding it in position. You put your vacuum advance in. Make sure that arm drops over that pin. Put your snap ring on there. Then put these two screws in. Make sure that that bolt's in, because that's your grounding side for your distributor. Otherwise, your distributor's grounding through metal, and the only metal mesh it has is that gear down there, which should always be covered in too much oil to make good contact, and that O-ring right there, which, if it's any good, is not going to allow electricity to flow. So you have to have that ground. So if your vehicle's doing an intermittent weird skip that clears up at high RPMs, check that ground. That screw's known for causing that symptom. But then once you do that, it's just a matter of rotor button on top, then cap, drop it in the engine. Well, drop it in the engine, then rotor button, then cap. But that's the basics of a Ford FE distributor, which a lot of other engines ran the same distributor, but this one's on an FE and it's oriented for an FE. Anyway, I just figured I'd take that opportunity to show you guys that. I'll be back when they get here with my new distributor. Let me clean off this camera right quick. Y'all get to see all my goofy, all my amateur. All right. I got to say this again. I might have said it before, but just in case. Frickin' Ham's Auto Parts, Napa Auto Parts in Thomaston, Georgia. They are freaking awesome. If you're anywhere near Thomaston and you need auto parts, give them guys a shout. They are awesome. Most auto parts companies wouldn't consider delivering a product to a non-commercial customer. They just delivered this thing to me right here in this Dollar General parking lot. Dude, they are awesome. Y'all got to check them out. But anyway, I got my new distributor, and I didn't have enough hands to fiddle with this phone and drop the thing in there at the same time without losing that oil pump drive shaft. All you do is insert your oil pump drive shaft in there. Make sure you mark your new distributor in the same place as you marked your old one, so that when you drop it in there, you'll be in time. Line it up the same way, and everything should be hunky-dory. Just because I said earlier this week I was going to find a way to use that word. Everything should be good. Wire it up. Put your cap on. Put your lockdown bolt on. You should be fired up and ready to rock and roll as much as a Ford can ever rock and roll anyway. Alright, I'm going to get that hold down bolt put in. Get the cap on it. And I'll be back. We need to do a little bit of adjusting. I'll go ahead and do that on camera so y'all can see that process too. Alright, I'll see y'all in a minute. Alright, you guys, look at her run. As it turns out, I didn't have to make any adjustments. The timing was set perfect before. But just so you know, on a FE motor, if it sounds like it's just like it's tapping air in the exhaust, that's the best way I can describe it. Is in the exhaust, the distributor needs to go that way, advance. If it's idled really, really high, the distributor needs to come this way, retard. You bring it up until it speeds up, and then you bring it down until it starts to do that air tappy sound. And then you bring it back to the middle of those two settings, and that's your eyeball setting. Now you can do it with or without. The book says take this off. But when you're eyeballing it, you're not setting anything exact. So you want to set it to where it's going to run with the way it's going to run on the road, which is with the vacuum advance. That way any variables in your carburetor in that port that controls the vacuum advance don't affect your timing. When you go to put a timing light on it and set it up correctly, you're going to want to take that vacuum advance hose loose and set your timing without the vacuum advance. That way the vacuum advance is just assisting, which is what it's designed to do. If it has an issue after that, you'll know that it's an issue in the carburetor with the port that controls the vacuum advance, which is the one on the side of the front metering block. But that's got her back running today. Alright, I'll see y'all next time. If you like the video, like it, share it, subscribe it. There's a lot of people that need information on these Ford distributors, and there ain't a whole lot of it out there. So that's where we at. Y'all have a good one.